right, ladies, this is the second entry into the Animus, and this is something that I found on the net, and it's kind of difficult to add to what she's doing because I like her presentation. She actually did the Anima and the Animus, but her take on the Animus was so interesting, I decided to chop it up, and I decided to put all the Animus parts together for you. And she actually did a really, really good description. In fact, she went into something that I hadn't studied before, which is the 4 levels of development of the Anima and the Animus. But I'm going to put the Animus in there for you. And I'm actually going to enhance what she said, which is kind of difficult to do because she actually got rather detailed in what it is. So I'm going to play the clip for you, and then I'll be back on the other side to talk about the 4 levels of development of the Animus, which is really rather interesting.
Animus. So if you think about it like a yin-yang symbol, it's kind of like the black dot within the white and the white dot within the black. So we each contain our inner opposites, making us psychologically androgynous. And Jung posited that it's very important for us to own our inner opposite traits. So if we're a man, we need to own our feminine side, and if we're a woman, we need to own our masculine side and not repress them away. This is because if the Anima and the Animus are not integrated, they become part of the shadow, and the shadow then gets projected out onto other people. So if we reject our masculine side, we will project that part of ourselves negatively out toward men. Or we will do the opposite with women. If we repress our Anima, it will end up being projected onto all women in the group within our society. The way that Jung saw it was that men were ruled by logos, so the rational, the logical, the intellectual, and women were ruled by eros, or the loving, the caring, the compassionate, the unifying. And because the goal of creating a healthy ego is integration and becoming the most individualistic person and the strongest person that you can, he saw the lack of integration of our inner opposites as something that would stand in the way. So somebody who's undeveloped, their little yin-yang symbol, instead of having a full circle inside of the larger circle, they would have just mere pinpricks, was what he said. Also, with the Anima and the Animus being archetypes, this is part of our ancestral memory. And so even though it might be influenced by the external environment, and maybe our Anima or Animus might be associated with a particular type of person or even particular people, it really comes from that internal unconscious. And the Animus and the Anima, when fully integrated, they are actually mediators between the unconscious and spiritual and the conscious mind. And so to have a fully developed Anima or Animus is what we need to basically be complete in ourselves in order that we might access wisdom. So Yang, which has an implicit tie to the masculine principle, is everything external. It's the doing nature. Purpose, goal setting, having an agenda and bringing that onto the world. Personal agency and autonomy, rationality, logic, intellect, logos, individuality, transformation and change, stoicism, analytical prowess, discernment, direction, and ability to commit and pull through with things. The Yang traits are ones that are clear and evident and have a lot to do with movement. So some common Yin traits are being, compassion, awareness of the present moment, connection to the unconscious mind, embracing paradox and cognitive dissonance, exploring the mysterious and non-rational, connection to wisdom, emotional intelligence, unconditional love, and respect for Earth and its creatures. So this is the dark, this is the mysterious, this is the stillness. You could even say that meditation is a yin undertaking because you're taking time to be still and to just be. So that is a feminine activity. So I want to remind you again that these aren't men's and women's traits respectively. What they are is they are feminine and masculine traits. They are in every single person in varying degrees. So everyone has a capacity to develop these traits within themselves. It's not mutually exclusive, and in fact, according to Jungian theory and my personal opinion, it's quite destructive to repress away your inner opposite because it undermines your authenticity and creates a very dense shadow. About the anima, let's talk about the animus and how this presents itself in women and feminine men. Alright, so unlike the anima, which has a fairly singular image, the animus has a multifaceted kind of image that can basically reflect out onto various men that a woman might know. So the main thing about the animus is that it has like the particular qualities of the man before the personality associated with it. So a woman who has a well-integrated animus is going to be somebody who has opinions of her own, who has direction in life, who can pursue goals, who can take her emotions and then be able to logically and rationally understand them, to take that logos element and to become more aware of what's internal to her. So basically, it allows for a greater degree of analytical prowess to integrate the animus for a woman. And it also helps her have direction in life. So just like men have 4 stages to develop their anima, women have 4 main stages as well. So the first one is the man of mere physical power. It's like the first stage of animus development in a woman. And so basically, this type of woman isn't going to have a lot of control over her own life. She's going to be looking for this strong, tall man that's going to protect her and provide for her. And basically, she's going to be like this damsel in distress and really just kind of a decorum to his own physical power. The second level of animus development in a woman is the man of action or romance. So in this, like, women will see men as people who are capable of, setting forward plans. And that's what she'll be searching for in a mate or in any kind of male companionship or friendship. And she'll see that as the quality of the masculine. And so while she might have her own preferences and opinions, she's still going to be looking for a man to provide that for her. So she'll basically just kind of be following along with whatever her significant other does, or if she's younger, her father, so she'll basically just be following whatever that external example is. All right, the third level of animus development in a woman is seeing the man as professor, clergyman, or orator. So this is a man of word and opinion. And so in this, a woman can assert her own worldview, and she has very particular things that, she wants to have happen and that she can now make happen in getting to this stage of anima development. So she has opinions, she has worldviews, she can start to make things happen, but she does not quite yet have that connection to the animus, which, just like the anima, is the mediator between the unconscious and the conscious mind. He is the connection that allows her to bridge forth from the feminine wisdom that she naturally has and to bring it out into life. So the fourth stage is the fully integrated animus. And so this is the inner Hermes, the messenger of the gods. And so in her developing her ability for analysis and having a worldview and direction and preferences and having a fully developed persona and ego, now she can take that down into the feminine wellstream of the unconscious mind, which is part of the feminine principle, and she can start to manifest from that, and she can bring her creativity into fruition as opposed to it just flowing chaotically within herself. Now, on a personal note, I have a very, very strong connection to my inner animus. And in fact, whenever I do the ideation for my videos and for my various things where I contemplate things, there's always an audience for that. So I have this tendency, I kind of like talk things out in my own head or sometimes out loud. That's true. And basically, I always imagine that I'm talking to an older male authority figure that I know from out in life. And usually this has been a professor or some kind of teacher, maybe back when I was in high school and middle school, or a boss of mine, but always somebody who's a little bit older than me that I can just kind of tell my ideas and insights to. And in these little fantasies, in these like bouts of active imagination, he sits there and he listens, and somehow that helps me bring out whatever insight that I have. And so there's always an audience. And in fact, you could even say that right now I'm sort of doing the same thing. I have this inner audience of various male authority figures that I speak to. And I mean, it might sound a little bit strange, but it is very, very helpful for me in solidifying my ideas and opinions and insights. Now, of course, a woman who does not have a highly developed animus, that animus is going to be expressed anyway. It doesn't go away. It is part of you. It will always find expression. But then it gets expressed as an animus possession, which is part of shadow masculinity. And this type of woman, it has to know everything. Or a feminine man that has to know everything. So basically, this is a very rigidity of opinions. Instead of assertiveness, which is a sign of the healthy animus, it's aggressiveness. You know, everything has to be just so, you know, and there's a constant judgment, particularly to other women. And, you know, everybody kind of has to basically deal with this type of person because they're always talking and interjecting their views onto everything, and everything has to be just right. It's a very dogmatic kind of person who's dealing with animus possession. Another thing that happens is that these type of people tend to get cut off from life and really out of touch with their emotions, and basically their whole focus is on manipulating so that material things come to them. And you know, they're not able to really have relationships with people because they're so blocked off from the emotional side of themselves. They have no heart. And there was even one source that I saw that was called the Animus possessed woman as the ball busting bitch. And you know, so it's basically somebody who has to have complete control of everything. So that's what animus possession is. And so how do we avoid that? How do we integrate the animus? Well, what we want to do as women is we want to start to get a really clear sense of what our values are. So if we are a very emotional person naturally, what we want to do is we want to start applying our thoughts to this. We want to start analyzing those. Like, what does this mean? Like, what exactly do I want? Get really, really clear about what you want and what you need out of life. And then become a person of action and strategy. Set forth goals to follow. So, for example, if you have like just this kind of unnamed emotion, find out what that is. Find out how that's going to be leading you in life. And then choose that direction. Go in the direction of where your emotions tell you to go. And be willing to set firm boundaries for yourself and to be assertive. And if things don't feel right to you, say, hey, that does not feel right to me. Or if you really enjoy something, be willing to express, oh, I really like this. Or if you don't like something, say, I really don't like this. You know, feel free to have opinions separate from the group or separate from social expectations of femininity. Also, it's important to withdraw any dependence that you have on a man for your own self-worth. So a lot of times women dealing with animus possession, their primary thing that they value is being attractive to men. And so that can't be your primary value. You want to put most of your value in developing yourself as an individual and individuating and becoming the most highly developed person that you can as a person. You'll also want to develop your own unique leadership qualities, and oftentimes feminine people tend to lead differently than masculine people, and so there's sort of almost a reinvention of leadership qualities that has to occur, you know, and they have to be based in your own personal values, which only you know. So it's the ability for independence, for autonomy, for self-agency to make your life really go. All right, so now that we've talked about the anima and animus, I'll just kind of throw in my 2 cents about this. So basically, ideally, you wouldn't even be thinking about how masculinity and femininity is presenting itself in your personality. You would simply want to just be authentic and not worried about whether something is labeled as feminine or something is labeled as masculine. However, very often, our cup gets filled up with all sorts of indoctrinations and beliefs how a woman should be and how a man should be or how people should not be. And so in order to do this, I recommend you look through a list of yin and yang traits and try to find the ones that fit best with you and try to develop those to the umpteenth degree to become a highly developed individual no matter what your gender is. But whatever that might mean, don't let a concept define you. You are actually an infinite thing, and you are so much more than your particular gender identity, no matter what it is.
Yeah, there you have it. She actually did a really good job of describing the archetypes of the animus and the 4 steps of the development of integrating your animus. I can't really improve on it as much because she's quite skilled, but I will give my take. Most people like to hear my take. I started to just leave it as it was, but like I'm saying, most people say, okay, what do you feel about it, BGS? So BGS is going to tell you. If you look at the development of the animus especially, it really follows almost precisely with the hero's journey, ending when you actually go deep into the unconscious or the darkness and you need a guide, and that's where it ends with the Hermes or the clergyman or the orator. But let's take them one at a time. Let's take the first stage. And most women, especially if they've gone to a popular high school, know what the first stage is, which is the man of physical power or mere physical power. Now, the MGTOWs call this the alpha male brute. Now, he could be the point guard of the basketball team, or he could be the linebacker of the football team or the captain of the football team. In other words, the athletic alpha male, which is the high value male in, like, say, middle class people. Now, in the hood, everybody knows who the alpha male brute is, or the man of mere physical power would be the thug that's willing to secure her safety and protection. That's what the alpha male brute or the thug is actually for, especially in the hood. We always recognize that because of the toughness of the tats and the muscles and that kind of stuff. A lot of black women actually go for that, the alpha male brute or the man of mere physical power. That signifies that he can actually take care of you on a primal level, which is protection. Now, on this one, what I'm reading, for white people, Tarzan is the epitome of the alpha male brute or the man of mere physical power. Now, black men could say, or black women can say, it could be Stringer Bell, which is Idris Elba, or 50 Cent on the lower end, or somebody like The Rock, a man of mere physical power. The second stage, she talks about the man of action or romance. Now, the man of action is just a step above the man of mere physical power or the alpha male brute. And here it splits into 2. Now, we're talking about the romantic guy or the cute guy, the suave guy, the guy that's good with his mouthpiece. He can talk a woman's into bed or into getting what he wants. A lot of women that want their alpha male brute or the man of mere physical power to morph into this kind of guy, actually blend the 2 together. The guy that's smooth and urbane and sophisticated, and on the other end, the guy of action, the guy that gets things done. On the top end, that would be the player, the pickup artist, or the womanizer. And the man of action would be the entrepreneur, the hustler, the guy that can make money fast, the guy that gets things done, the guy that can actually bring home her provisions. Now, the bottom end is, in black culture, that would be represented by the pimp and the drug dealer or the hustler down at the bottom end. Well, the pimp with the smooth words, or the pimp or Mac type person, with the smooth word and give her romance, make her feel good. And then the hustler or the drug dealer or whatever, the hustler down on the other end, they actually bring things in, bring her money, give her the lifestyle that she wants. I was trying to think of how to put this in terms that women can understand as far as an archetype. And my thoughts went to as far as the guy of romance. I don't know how women or young women are going to actually feel about this one, but Prince would be the person I would think of as the guy of romance, especially back in my day. And you would contrast him against somebody, say like JayZ, who's deemed as a man of action. Nobody would call JayZ romantic, but he's the hustler, the kind of guy that makes money and kind of takes the world by the balls and actually does things on his own way to actually provide a lifestyle. So JayZ would be, in my mind, that kind of guy, that man of action, or that at the low end, the upgraded version of the man of mere physical power. Now, the next step up, I think this step actually happens when a lot of women get into their 30s, maybe even their mid 30s, when they start to make that change and they leave behind the more, how can I say, mundane levels, which is just brute physical energy, and after that, provision and romance. They seek a more cerebral kind of guy, a guy that they can talk to. And this is the level they call a man as a professor, clergyman, orator, a man of letters and words and thoughts. Now, what I read, they suggested Lord Byron or an orator like that. But for black women, I think the image of Barack Obama probably epitomizes the man as a professor and orator. A lot of women in their 30s actually seek out their clergyman, their pastor, as the head or their ideal man. But I think Barack Obama would be the universal symbol probably around the world as a black man at this particular level, as the professor or orator. Just the energy that he exudes, what he says, and how women follow his words. The orator or the professor is more cerebral, more reflective, because a woman at this stage in her 30s doesn't quite need the provision and protection that she used to, or she doesn't desire it. That's already assured. So she wants something more, the next level up, which is more mental than physical. Possibly because she's probably coming towards the end of her peak fertility or her fertile life. So providing for her babies is not as big a deal, or at least her body's telling her providing for the babies is not as big a deal. So she needs something at a higher level, which is more mental development. So I think this stage is probably more of a mental development. I might have to come back and do this as a separate piece, but it's really, really quite interesting about these four levels. Okay, the last but not least is what they call the inner Hermes, or the inner spiritual guide that actually leads you into the unconscious, into the collective unconscious of the universe. Now, normally women don't get into this. I would say, especially black women, don't really get to this level until their 50s, where they're actually seeking an inner guide. And she's actually trying to work out all her inner inadequacies, because now she's comfortable enough with herself to actually do it. Most women are not comfortable with their insides until they actually get old, and their insides or their beauty or their outer beauty is either gone or it's not as useful as it used to be. Usually when women get to this stage, they really have a very, very strong spiritual connection with their religion, whether it's Jesus, whether it's Buddhism, whether it's Allah, but it's very, very strong and very, very reflective. But that is the 4 stages of her animus, which in fact coincides with the 4 stages of a man's development, where physicality is the primary importance for protection when he's very young, gaining resources, actually doing things or building things when he's in his 20s, maybe even his 30s, and then starting to get more intellectual and more reflective as he's in his late 30s and maybe his 40s. And then his final development is spiritual, where you can actually look back on what you've done with your life and start recounting the lessons that you've learned, give back, and actually become a not only a spiritual guide for yourself, but also a spiritual guide for the people that are behind you. So it's reflective of the development of a man. If you think of Malcolm X, the stages that he went through, anybody's ever read the autobiography of Malcolm X, he went through those exact same stages, because Malcolm X, when he was young, he was in his teens and 20s, he was a thug, he was a drug dealer, he was a hustler. Even in his early 20s, he became a man of action. He became a man of romance, because he told me about, he told us about how he used to go dance. He used to pick up women. He used to pick up black women and white women. He used to do robberies. He didn't have the white women helping him do robberies and stuff like that. So he became the hustler. He became the halfway pimp. He became the Mac in his 20s. When he went to prison and he got out, then he became what? He became a clergyman. He became an orator. He became the person that actually led his people as far as speaking. He led his people on a civil rights crusade. He became the Barack Obama of his time. And then during his latter stage, when he made his pilgrimage and he came back, he found his inner Hermes. And he became not only the orator or the leader of his people as far as speaking and engaging, but he also became his people's spiritual guide. He actually made his transformation before he died into actually integrating all three of those parts all together to become the best version of himself, become his complete male, a complete man. So in other words, ladies, your animus has to go through those same 4 stages, just like a man, because inside your head, your animus works just like a man. And as she was saying, if you develop your animus just like a man and give that animus what it needs just like a man or a male, then you will develop that animus inside your head, and you will not have to project it out onto another human being. In other words, you won't need a man for that. You will need a man for what he actually is instead of what you actually want him to be. Like I said, I can't really improve upon what she said. All I can do is actually expand upon it, because it's actually quite good. And I've looked at it 3 or 4 times, and every time I look at it, I see the detail that she actually went into. She actually consolidated it, but she actually gave you the meat. She cut away all the bone and fat. But I'll put the link to her video in the description. You have to go look at the whole thing. I'm thinking about doing something on these 4 stages for men and women a little later and actually expanding upon it. But it's something that I have to really reflect upon. But with that, I hope you ladies enjoyed this one. In fact, I spoke longer than I actually thought I would. But this is my 2nd installment of the Animus. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is BGS out.